So unless you've been living under a rock, you will be well aware that IndyCar is taking on Circuit of the Americas for the first time this weekend. And that provides an interesting opportunity, an opportunity that we haven't had in quite some time, and that is to compare the lap times of both of the top levels of open wheel racing on planet Earth, both the FIA Formula One World Championship and the NTT IndyCar Series. The last time we had this opportunity was 2006 at Montreal. Fernando Alonso qualified on the pole position for that Grand Prix in his Mild 7 Renault, a very, very famous Formula One car, and Sebastian Bourdais qualified on the pole for the Champ Car race in his McDonald's Newman Haas Lola Ford. The difference between the two cars at that point was 5 seconds. Now, of course, there's been much more development on the Formula One side versus the American open wheel side since then. In fact, since about 2006, IndyCar has more or less been a spec series, so there has been very incremental increases, while if you think about Formula One in 2006, they were using naturally aspirated V8 engines. Now they, of course, are using hybrid turbocharged V6s that produce nearly 1,000 horsepower. So now we get to 2019 and we get to find out just how far Formula One has come and just how far IndyCar has come. Now, of course, it's not a direct comparison to that 5-second gap that we saw at Montreal. Of course, Montreal is a tighter track, it's a faster track, there's a little bit less Mickey Mouse, and it's shorter, and certainly that's going to factor into the lap times, especially the fact that it's shorter. You have less time to lose if you're a slower car, and I say slower, kind of tongue planted firmly on my cheek. In fact, this entire video is kind of tongue planted firmly on my cheek. It's definitely a stir the pot video. I'm well aware of that. I think some people are probably going to take this way too seriously. I'm sure there's already comments, either threatened F1 fans, because there's going to be some IndyCar fans out there who are going to say, well, our racing is way better, and it almost certainly will be at Circuit of the Americas, by the way, if the Indy Lights race today was anything to go off of. But there'll also be the threatened IndyCar fans who will tell you and wax on about how spec racing is great and how Formula One budgets are $200 million for every car, and that's stupid. Regardless, you're welcome to comment that. This is more just a fun comparison to take a look at how many different series stack up against each other. And that also provides a unique opportunity with Circuit of the Americas because of the fact that the track outside of Formula One hasn't been very successful in maintaining events over the years. There's actually quite a list of famous racing series to choose from to look at lap times and also compare them to Formula One and IndyCar. So I've got a list of 10 racing vehicles that we're going to take a look at their lap times, and see exactly how they all stack up with one another. Now, for the most part, they are the track records for their respective series, but I took them all from the most recent event that the category raced. So in terms of the MotoGP, which will be the first thing you'll hear about, they I believe the track record was set around 2016, 2017, but the 2018 track record, or the pole position I should say, is so close to the track record that I just decided to go with the 2018 to try to give this as fair of a comparison as possible based on the track conditions as they are now and as IndyCar is running on them right now. So without any further ado, let's get to stirring the pot and let's find out exactly which series are the fastest around Circuit of the Americas. So we're going to start down in 10th spot. Like I said, the Repsol Honda of Marc Marquez for MotoGP clocks in at a 203.658. Now that's a fairly respectable time, and in fact I looked at some of the American Le Mans Series LMP1 times, and that was actually significantly faster than those cars were, and those cars were pretty beastly. So yeah, MotoGP bikes, they're nothing at all to mess with. You move up to 10th position, or 9th position, I should say, moving up from 10th position to 9th position, is the LMGTE class from the World Endurance Championship. This is a Ferrari 488 from the AF Corsa team. That car clocks in at a 202.993. just about a second faster than the MotoGP bike. So I guess 4 wheels are a little bit better than 2 or something like that. Then we move up to 8th position and we get our first American open wheel racing car, a time also that was set this weekend. This was done by Oliver Askew in the Indy Lights division. The car is a Dallara. The engine is an AER 4-cylinder turbocharged car, or engine I should say. That car qualified or clocked in at a 155.545. Then we move up to 7th on the board. And interestingly enough, this is where we get to the first LMP1 car. Now this specifically is the Rebellion R1. This is technically an LMP1L car, meaning this is an LMP1 car not fitted with a hybrid electric motor, which in some cases adds as many as 500 to 600 horsepower to the car and really increases that lap time, or decreases that lap time in this particular case. The Rebellion clocked in at a 153.773. Now, a non-hybrid LMP1 car actually, I think, last showed up at Circuit of the Americas in 2015. So you have to imagine that would a modern LMP1 non-hybrid car show up, it would be quite a bit faster than this. We go up to 6th on the board, and it's an LMP2 car, ironically from the same team, Rebellion Racing. This is an Oreca 07 powered by a Gibson V8. But as you can see, it is just a tick faster at a 153.081. Kind of interesting that an LMP2 car, or at least the how much development has happened in the LMP2 division, how much faster those cars have become over the last couple of years. Just a couple years younger on that car is much faster than the LMP1 car that preceded it. Now we move into the car that is probably the most direct comparison to the IndyCar, here in 5th spot on the board. The Formula Renault 3.5-liter race car. This car, ironically enough, or this time, was set by a former IndyCar driver, or I guess when he set this time, he was a future IndyCar driver, Rene Bender. Yes, indeed, Rene Bender. He set a 149.764. Now, of course, Formula Renault is a spec car, actually more spec than IndyCar, though they have similar horsepower numbers and I would presume as well downforce numbers. So that's when we get to the IndyCar. This was set today. Pole position time for the race. Now there's a couple of caveats here. Number one, this actually wasn't the fastest overall time set in the qualifying session. It was actually Felix Rosenquist who set something like a 1:45, but Will Power set this time to get the pole position, and therefore, because it was the official time, I used this time to represent what the IndyCar was capable of, or at least what would have been a representative pole time in this Dallara Chevrolet. A 1:46.017. So that's where the IndyCar slots in. They slot into 4th position on the board. So what is faster, or they're slotting into 3rd position on the, or 4th position on the board. Sorry, 4th position or 3rd position on the board. I'll get this right eventually. Is the LMP1H division, the Porsche 919. Now, of course, we know this car as a track record smasher. In fact, a modified version of this car went about 5 minutes around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, so it's very quick. They set a time in 2017 around Circuit of the Americas at a 1:44.656. So the LMP1 car is about 2 seconds, maybe 1.5 seconds faster than the IndyCar around Circuit of the Americas. Now again, remember, the hybrid system would give the P1 car about 300 horsepower advantage over the IndyCar, and there's also that slick bodywork, full bodywork on an LMP1 car to contend with. Now we've got one that's probably going to be controversial. Sitting in 3rd place, I decided to add this to the board because it was the slowest official F1 qualifying time that I could find. It was from the first United States Grand Prix in 2012. This is the HRT Cosworth. The driver was Narain Karthikeyan, and the time was 1 minute 42.740. Now, interestingly enough about the HRT, that was actually built by Dallara. So a slow Dallara Formula One car is almost exactly 2 seconds, or actually almost 3.5 seconds faster than the Indy cars now. Now, that being said, a new track, when Circuit of the Americas was new, obviously the surface had a little bit more grip. I suspect if you put that HRT out there now, it would struggle to beat the IndyCar, but again, that's kind of speculation. So P1 on the board, we have got, no real surprise, the Mercedes 2018 Lewis Hamilton car. Now, there are 2 times that I'm going to give you for this car. The first one is the official pole position time from the Grand Prix last year of the United States. 1 minute 32.237. That was the lap that got Lewis Hamilton the pole position. But once you take away the party mode, the low fuel, the fresh tires, what is a Formula One car capable around Circuit of the Americas? So I took the race lap, the fastest race lap from Lewis Hamilton, and we're also going to take a look at that. 1 minute 37.392. So in qualifying trim from the Mercedes to the IndyCar, it's about 14 seconds. You get around the race conditions and you get a little bit more of a representative time. You get down to about 9 seconds, but that's still a pretty massive gap. But again, you'll hear about it quite a bit, I'm sure, in the comments section. The budgets are massively different these days. There's no development at IndyCar that is nearly as meaningful as it is in F1. Not disparaging the work that is done on the dampers or the work that is done on the engines for IndyCar, but that is a big gap. The thing that kind of interested me was the fact that the LMP1 cars are faster around Circuit of the Americas than the Indy cars. That was kind of a surprise to me, but I guess horsepower does really matter, and specifically the fact that a lot of those P1H cars gain four-wheel drive out of the corners, certainly corner exit speeds help them quite a bit. So that was the lap time comparison at Circuit of the Americas. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you didn't get too upset with me for doing this video, but I felt like it was an interesting video to do. It's always kind of that playground comparison thing. It's like the what if. What if Formula One and LMP1 and IndyCar all raced together? And I'm guessing that if you went to Indianapolis, the Speedway, and put an F1 car and an LMP1 car and an IndyCar out there, you might get a bit of a different result. This is definitely a Formula One track, so it's going to favor Formula One cars. Regardless, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content, and we'll see you in the next video.